Hi, everyone. Welcome to our DigitalOcean Kubernetes screencast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to deploy and manage applications with DigitalOcean Kubernetes. So, who am I? My name is Phil Dougherty. I lead product management for Kubernetes at DigitalOcean. I'm based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm really happy to be here today to talk through some of this stuff with you. So, what will we be talking about? Well, firstly, we're going to have an overview of DigitalOcean Kubernetes, talk about what it is, talk about how you can lower your hosting costs using Kubernetes and our product. And then I'm going to walk through a demo where we're going to set up a cluster. I'm going to walk through the different features that we provide. Then we're going to deploy an application that utilizes some of our integrated services. And then we're going to kind of show how you can deploy changes to it, roll it back, and then talk a bit about what the roadmap's looking like and what's coming next. So, DigitalOcean Kubernetes is our managed Kubernetes product, and we really built it to be the most simple and cost-effective way to handle container orchestration. So it helps you to release faster, scale out more easily, become highly available, and make sure that your applications are portable. That can be between your own data center and DigitalOcean or any other cloud provider, or even on your laptop. And then, like I mentioned before, it can help you to lower your costs. So Kubernetes itself brings a bunch of different benefits to the table. One of them is productivity. So we've kind of gotten away from having to build our own orchestration systems and things that we had to do in the past. Kubernetes has come and become a standard that makes it easier for us to follow best practices, get a hosting environment set up, and be able to focus on our application instead of the infrastructure. The other great benefit is the resource efficiency. So Kubernetes is great at packing lots of different workloads onto your cluster of machines that you have running. So you're not going to have a server that's just handling your caching service or something and is underutilized. So Kubernetes will help you to make the best use of the compute resources that you're paying for. It also helps you to streamline your operations. So automating your application deployments, monitoring, and not having to do that yourself. And like I mentioned before, there's high availability. So you don't have servers that are going offline that have a specific job per se. Any machine in the cluster potentially could handle running the application. So if one dies, Kubernetes can shift it off to another server. Also scalability. So it's really easy to add more nodes to your cluster as you get more traffic to meet the needs of your users. And then portability. So like I said before, you can run you run Kubernetes locally on your laptop. You could run it in your own data center, or you can run it in the cloud. And, we think that's a really great benefit. So, with our product specifically, we're taking the hassle out of kind of provisioning and maintaining a Kubernetes environment. One thing that is kind of special about our product is that the control plane is completely free. So there's no charge to use the product itself. You just pay for the resources that make up the cluster. We support multiple node pools. So you could have a group of nodes that are of a certain type, instance type, and then for a specific job. And then you can have a completely different, maybe high memory or high CPU or a general purpose node pool that could be for a different purpose. We support really easy scaling up and down. We support version upgrades, so you can keep your cluster up to date and we'll have to do that manually. And then we have built-in insights which provide metrics and alerting. So Kubernetes really is helpful when it comes to cost saving. So the resource efficiency is really the big win when it comes to Kubernetes itself. Being able to run more on the servers that you are already paying for, basically. And then DigitalOcean, as a cloud provider, provides a ton of cost savings and benefits over the competition. So you can see some of the stats here about what typical customers might expect to save. So I'm going to jump into the demo, and we're going to take a look at the product and then deploy that application. All right, so I just logged into my DigitalOcean account, and so I'm here in the Cloud UI, and we want to go to Manage here, and then down to Kubernetes. So here's the overview of the clusters I have running. So you can see that I already have one running here. If this is your first time using DigitalOcean Kubernetes, you're going to get a really pretty kind of splash screen here that will explain some of the benefits of the product and help you to get started creating your cluster. Since I already have one, I can go ahead to click Create here and click on Clusters. And now I am dropped into the cluster create flow. So the first thing I need to do is select a version. So I have a lot of versions available here because I work at DO, but you'll see the top, the three most recent minor versions. So we have 1.13, 1.14, and 1.15. And then we always release the patch versions, such as the .3 here, as soon as they're available, and you're able to upgrade to those later. So don't necessarily worry about what you're picking, but I would pick the latest one if you're creating your first cluster. So once you go ahead and pick the version of Kubernetes that you want to run, you need to choose the data center to run in. So let's go ahead and choose, let's say NYC1. And then we need to choose the cluster capacity. So I mentioned in the previous section that we support multiple different node pools. So I can see that I have one here that has a name that we generated for you. And then the type of node I want to run. So I can choose from standard, general purpose, CPU optimized. So maybe I'll choose standard nodes here, and maybe I'll run some of these, and maybe I only want two of those. And I'll call this maybe web app. Then I can have another node pool. Maybe this one I'll call Q. And I can maybe use general purpose nodes. And these look good. And I'll run 3 of those. And I can add as many as I want here. For this, we'll just have the 2 though. So now I'm able to see an estimation of what my monthly cost is going to be to run this cluster. After that, I'm able to add tags optionally if I want to. I don't know if I need to for this example, but I can show you, right? Tags are used all across the DigitalOcean product line to basically link things together and to correlate different things that you have running. So this can be helpful if you're already using tags in DO. After that, we need to name the cluster. So we generate a name for you. Maybe I'll call this one my cluster. And then you can choose to put it in a project if you want. You go ahead and click Create Cluster. And that will start provisioning. So I actually already went ahead and created another cluster previously here that we can take a look at. It's already online. So when my cluster first comes up, we have this really helpful kind of getting started information. It walks you through getting your command line interface set up and getting your configuration in place so that you're able to connect to the cluster, and then you're all set. So I can see here that I have a total cluster capacity of 8 CPUs, 32 gigabytes of memory, and 100 gigabytes of disk. This is great because I don't have to worry about individual servers anymore. Let's take a look at the nodes that I have running in this cluster. So in this cluster, I have one single node pool, and it has 4 nodes in it. So in this area, I'm able to edit tags. I'm also able to resize this node pool. So say I'm expecting more traffic, or I just want to scale up. I can really easily update the node count there, and we'll go ahead and provision another node which will join this node pool. I'm also able to act on individual nodes. I can recycle them. So say, for example, I had an issue with this specific node and I wanted to replace it with a new node. I can go ahead and click recycle here. Or if I wanted to scale down and specifically remove this node, I could choose delete. and that'll go ahead and remove it and scale down the cluster. I can also add new node pools through here. So this is exactly like we saw in the cluster create flow. I can add more node pools if I so choose. Not going to do that right now, but it's really simple to do when you need to. So we can see that the node I just launched is coming online right now. So we also have built-in insights. So there's not much happening on this cluster right now, but we provide metrics on how the cluster is performing. And if you install our advanced metrics, you can get additional stats that are more specific to Kubernetes itself, and I definitely recommend doing that. And you can also set up alert policies based on these metrics. So, if you want to know if CPU is really high or something's going on, you can go ahead and set up alerts. So in the settings area here, there's a couple of different things that I'm able to do. So I can destroy my cluster. We don't want to do that right now. But I can enable automatic upgrades. So I have them enabled right now. Let's just disable it. So the automatic upgrades will only ever upgrade a patch version of Kubernetes. So we won't upgrade you from 1.13 to 1.14. You'll need to come in and click upgrade yourself. But we will automatically do upgrades if you just want to get the latest security updates and patch versions, which is really helpful. So let's turn it back on. And then I can also set when I want that to happen. So right now I have it set to Wednesday at 5 p.m. Maybe I don't necessarily care what day it happens. I just want it to happen at 12 p.m. I can go ahead and do that. So we will automatically, do those upgrades at that point in time. Cool. So that's a quick little run through of the user interface for DigitalOcean Kubernetes. I'm going to now jump into a terminal and we'll do some interacting with the cluster and deploy some applications. Okay, so here we are. I have my terminal up and let's start interacting with the cluster. So when you're using Kubernetes, you're going to need to authenticate to the cluster to be able to use the command line interface kube control. You can do that by putting your configuration file, which can be downloaded right through our user interface, into .kube/config in your home directory. But we make it a lot easier using our do control command line interface. So if you don't have our command line tool installed, we explain how to do it actually in the UI, but a quick Google, it's really simple to do. You can install it with Homebrew on Mac or via package in Linux. And once it's set up, you get this really handy Kubernetes subcommand where I can see my clusters that are running. Right, so that's pretty helpful. But if I actually want to configure my web interface or my command line interface to use one of these, I need to run this command, this kubeconfig save, and then specify the name of the cluster that I want to use. So let's set it to webinar 1. Cool. So now my CLI is set up to use that cluster. If I wanted to switch to the other one, it's as simple as just running that command again with the name of the other one. And we'll keep the auth always configured, so it's really handy and helpful. So now I'm able to just use kube control, which I have installed. Let's take a look and see the nodes. Nice. So we can see that all of our nodes are ready. And we can see that this is the one that I just added in the UI in the previous section. So great. All right. Well, what's running on this cluster? We can run kube control get pods. Oop. Well, there's nothing running. Let's change that. So I'm in this directory right now, a webinar directory. This is a getting started example that we show users how to get them running. So if you go through the steps that I kind of showed after the cluster comes online, it'll help you get this set up and running. That way you can learn a bit about how to deploy things, but we're going to walk through it here. So everything in Kubernetes is defined in YAML. So I have this manifest.yaml. Let's take a look at that. Right. Okay. So in here, I have a couple of different things going on. I can see that I have a service being defined, and then I also have a deployment. So the service is actually going to be our load balancer that'll point to our application. So we have an integration with our load balancer as a service. So if you define a service in your Kubernetes manifest, we'll go ahead and spin up a DigitalOcean load balancer for you and manage it. Right. So there's a couple things going on. I have a name I'm defining for it, and then I'm setting type load balancer. And then I'm setting this selector for the load balancer to DOKS example. And so what that's doing is referencing this deployment that we have down here. So the thing is that I could have multiple different maybe deployments, or maybe I have a replica set or some other Kubernetes workload being defined in here, or a job. And this is what's important so that it will point to the right thing. So we're specifying what the protocol is, what port it should be listening on, etc. And then we have our actual deployment down here. So in this example, we're just going to set up an Nginx web server. So let's change this version real quick to a different version of Nginx, just for fun, and save it. And now to apply that to my cluster, I can use the kubectl apply, specify that it's a file, and list the file there, and apply it. Cool, so we can see that my service was created and my deployment was created. So let's take another look and see if we have anything running. Looks like we do. Good stuff. The one other thing I should have pointed out was in the manifest, I'm specifying the number of replicas, 3. That's why there's 3 of them running, right? So that's 3 different instances. So let's take a little deeper look at the deployment here. Cool. So we can see that we have 3 of 3 ready. Everything's up to date. What the containers are, what image it's running. Cool, so that's helpful. And now, what about our service? Whoop. Cool, all right, so we can see here that our load balancer is still pending. So, the DigitalOcean load balancer is being created. Once it's up, we'll see the external IP listed here, so it shouldn't take long. We can throw a watch on this, actually. That's actually hard to look at. Okay, cool. So now if we check again, now we have 4 running. Awesome. So that's great and all. What about if we want to change some stuff and redeploy? So let's open up our manifest and say we want to run a different version of our app. So in this case, we're running, it's Nginx, but this could be a new tag of your own custom Docker image that you're running. So let's run 1.17.2, and we could add other labels. We can change whatever we want in here. And now you're probably wondering, like, well, how do I, make sure that things are the same in my manifest and as they are running on the cluster? Well, we can see what's running live versus what you have running, or versus what's local in your manifest using the diff command. Okay, so that's really helpful. So we can see that, okay, the replicas are different. So we're only specifying 3 in our config, and then we can see that our version changed. So we're going to want to change the replicas here so we can keep our manifest up to date. And then all we need to do is apply the manifest. Awesome. And now we can see that the new image version is running. So it's really as simple as that. So it does a rolling update to this, so there won't be any downtime for your users, which is great. Another really helpful thing, if you want to check to see how things are going, you can use this rollout status command. Whoops. So you can check the status. Say you had hundreds of instances running, then that rolling update might take a little while. I'm talking and typing at the same time. So we can see that it was successfully rolled out. Another great thing is you can also check the history of deployments. So if I wanted to, I could set a change cause. We kind of use that as almost like a change log for the deployments that are happening, which can be really helpful. But I can see that the thing has been deployed a couple of times. And then what if there is an issue and I want to undo what's going on? Well, rollout undo. And it rolls it back. And now if I check again my deployment, you see here we're back to Nginx 1.17. So this could be, say you're pushing out a new update to your application, and something goes wrong. It's really simple to roll it back and have a history of what's changed. So just really nice stuff that's built into Kubernetes. So that was a quick example of deploying an application to DigitalOcean Kubernetes. I'm going to jump back into the slides now, and we'll talk a bit about where we're headed with the product. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what's coming in DigitalOcean Kubernetes in the near future. So we're really excited about the features that we're working on currently, which are cluster autoscaling, which is something people have been asking for a long time. So you'll be able to enable autoscaling on your node pools. As you need more capacity, we'll automatically add more nodes to the cluster. As you don't need it, we'll go ahead and scale down the cluster. So great for cost savings. We're also switching to a token-based authentication mechanism for access to your cluster. Currently, we are utilizing certificates, and those have some downsides. One being that there's no way for you as a user to revoke the certificate or rotate it. So we are having to basically expire them once a week. So it's been kind of a pain point where if you're wanting to set up CI/CD, for example, you're gonna have to reconfigure it every week. Or say someone leaves your company, there's no way for you to remove their access, basically. So that's not been ideal. So we're updating that this quarter. And we also are finally coming out with our minor version upgrade support. So you'll be able to upgrade from 1.14 to 1.15, for example, and that's great for making sure that you stay up to date on the latest version of Kubernetes and are secure. And then in Q4, we're really excited about coming out with our first version of our container registry product. So there will be a registry that you can to push your images to, and it'll be baked right into the product. So there won't be any configuration, and you'll be able to get easy access to your images. And we have a lot of plans around what we plan to do with the registry in the future, things like image scanning, builds, etc. We're also going to be doing a lot of work around workload management within the UI. So exposing more of the resources that are running in your cluster within our cloud UI. So you'll be able to see what applications are running, how many of them, and be able to interact with it through the user interface. We're going to do a lot around basically surfacing insights to you about how things are performing, how things are configured. Maybe if you have something configured incorrectly, we'll be able to point that out to you. And then we're also going to be adding spaces and DBAS integration via a custom resource definition. So in your manifest, the way that we created a service and in our deployment, we'll also be able to create a space or create a database cluster, for example. And then into next year, we are going to be doing the same thing with firewall integration. So you'll be able to define firewall rules through your manifests, which would be really helpful. So we're really trying to make it so that you can manage your whole infrastructure on DigitalOcean as code, have it checked into version control, and be able to quickly duplicate your setup, and just manage things in a much more sane way. We're also going to be releasing a cluster backup, recovery, and migration solution. So being able to back up your cluster definition, clone it, for example, clone it into a different region. So really exciting stuff there. And then as we move further into the year, we plan to have logs exposed in the UI and have a cluster audit trail, which will help you to understand how things are going, what's changing on your cluster, and be able to interact as a team much more effectively. So this is just a couple of the features that we're going to be releasing. I thought these were some of the more exciting ones to talk about today, but there's a whole lot of stuff coming over the next year and beyond. So definitely stay tuned and keep a lookout for our release notes as we're always shipping new features. So I really appreciate taking the time to listen to this screencast today. If you have any suggestions about features you'd love to see, things that you love, things that you hate about the product, please do not hesitate to reach out, and have a great day.